Hello everybody, good evening, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge back again with your latest Manchester United news as Erik ten Hag and Manchester United face an injury nightmare that could actually destroy our hopes of Champions League football. It's that significant. Luke Shaw is out for basically the rest of the season. 3 months and Luke Shaw is out. Absolutely devastating. We'll delve into that. All sorts of questions have to be raised. Why was Reguilon let go at a time when Malacia was still injured and Luke Shaw's injury prone? Who sanctioned that? Who signed that off? I think you've got to look at the medical department again. We're also going to be talking about Sir Jim Radcliffe and his plans for Old Trafford. Mixed messages, not really. He was quite clear, in my opinion, that his preference is to stay at Old Trafford, but he did talk about a stadium in the north. So we'll talk about that as well and what your thoughts are on that. And also, a lot of people talking about the Mason Greenwood thing. I've had a couple of hours to think about it. I think it was a political answer, and I'll explain what I think is going to happen on that. And I don't think it's any different from what we thought this morning. Let's get into it. I've got to say straight away, Mick Wave has got it raised a very, very good point about Luke Shaw. In the case of, even whatever happens in the future, have we got to look to be moving Luke Shaw on? Is he now becoming broken? This to me is personal. I've fought against people who didn't like Luke Shaw many years ago. I said I think he's a really good left back, and I felt vindicated when he had that period where he was being called Roberto Carlos, and he was, for me, one of the best left backs in Europe. I still think on his day he's a massive, massive player for Manchester United. But of course, I tweeted it at about 2 o'clock this afternoon that there was a rumour that it was a bad injury, and then it was about 4 o'clock today that Man United Insider and Chris Wheeler put it out there that it's expected to be 3 months. It probably won't be a season ender, but 3 months takes it into May. I think that this is massive for Manchester United, and I think it poses three big questions. First of all, what are we going to do without a left back? Because it's not just, let's put Amrabat there or Arise, Lindelof. It's a massive problem not having a left-footed left back who can overlap, who is quick, who knows the role, who can bring Rashford into the game. That's a problem. We haven't got Martinez either, so we've got no left-footed players in the defence at all. I think Johnny Evans might be left-footed, but you know what I mean. Secondly, what does it mean for Luke Shaw's future? As I understand it, the injury that he went off with against Aston Villa is not the injury that's now kept him out now. This is a new injury, apparently. So that's 2 separate injuries, which leads to the assumption that he's basically coming towards his late 20s. And like some people who've had bad injuries at their start of their career, they just start to break down. It's called overcompensation. If somebody does their left knee, it's very common when they come back, they'll do something to their right knee or their right calf or their right hamstring because your right leg is overcompensating for the injured leg. And Luke Shaw had a very significant injury, as we saw when he first came to United. And it just looks like the rest of his body is just starting to just give out on him more and more regularly. We've said this about Varane. I love Varane and I love Luke Shaw. But if they can't play every week or they're going to miss 3 months every season, you can't. Consistency isn't just about mentality. It's also about injury. You can say, Jadon Sancho needs to go because he didn't turn up and he's not consistent. But you can also say, well, Luke Shaw needs to go because he's injured. That's not consistent either. Consistency takes on many forms. And then the third point is what's going on with our medical department, because Martinez had the same injury twice and has missed most of the season. Malacia hasn't been seen. Our admin said, has he been kidnapped? Is there some hidden story about Malacia? Where is he? He got injured last summer at some point. We've never seen him since. The best ability is availability, says Just Kevin. I agree. And then also, we've now got this situation with the Luke Shaw. And look, my big issue here is, I don't think Sergio Reguilon was ever going to get voted for the Ballon d'Or or the world's best left back. But he was a steady Eddie. In the words of Graham Souness, he was a steady Eddie. And what we need right now is a left-footed left back. And we had one in Reguilon who I cannot believe it. I want to start on the Reguilon thing. Actually, just before we get into that, Manscaped is sponsoring the show. I've got straight into it. Trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. 20% off. Free worldwide shipping. Get the lawnmower. For down there, trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. It makes a big difference. Get the beard trimmer, which I've used today. 11 different lengths, and it's really quick. The handyman will tidy up there or make you clean shaven if you want. And they've also got the weed whacker for up your nose. Free worldwide delivery with the code TUS plus 20% off. Links in the description or scan the QR code. We love a little bit of Manscaped, don't we, boys? It is Manscaped. We can say that. I mean, I don't know whether women can use it. And I'm certainly not going to say that you can't, because we don't live in that sort of world now. But from a man, I can tell you, it makes a big difference. 20% off with the code TUS, links in the description, scan the QR code, and free worldwide shipping. But look, I look at Reguilón, and I say, and this is the thing that, look, I'm irritated by a number of things, but with Reguilón, he was playing more games, obviously, than Malacia, and he was playing very regularly anyway. And then we let him go in January, and I was sort of like, why are we doing this? You know, people are trying to pin it on Erik ten Hag. There is no way it's Ten Hag's fault. As a manager, I am never going to knock on the door of the CEO and say, yeah, you can send Reguilón back now. It'd be great to save a few $100,000 a month. Send him back. I don't need him. Managers don't work like that. Managers would rather have 3 of something than 2 of something. Managers would always rather, you know, there is no such thing as a manager who says, don't give me any more players. Like, managers want as many options as they can. Like anybody wants options in life. And there is no way this is on Erik ten Hag. Erik ten Hag has not knocked on the door and said, yeah, send Reguilón back, don't need him. No way. Because Erik ten Hag, like you and me, will go, well, Malacia's been out all season. He's not even back yet. And Luke Shaw's injury prone. What's going to happen? And he will have had that conversation. And what will have happened is the medical team will have said, we're expecting Malacia back in January, and Luke Shaw's looking good for the rest of the season. So you've got 2 fullbacks. And if worst comes to the worst, Dalot can play there, and you can put Wan-Bissaka at right back. So you're well covered at left back. You've got 3 options. Well, Ten Hag has to put up with that. But what then happens is Wan-Bissaka's out for 2 months, Malacia's not back, and Luke Shaw's out for 3 months. So suddenly your left back cover Dalot is playing at right back, and you're screwed. It's not on Ten Hag, it's on the medical department, and it's on the bloody CEO who said, let's save a little bit of money. It's ridiculous what we did with Reguilón, who is now starting at left back for Brentford. So it's just, this saving of money by sending Reguilón back, and it was about saving money, because it's the only reason we didn't get Cucurella, because Cucurella wanted to come for the whole season and not half the season. This saving of money could cost us 50 million quid. Because I genuinely believe without Luke Shaw, we might not get Champions League football. I think it's that big. This is massive. Absolutely massive. We're 1 player away from being back where we were between November and Christmas. No Shaw, no Martinez, and no Casemiro. We're 1 player away from that now. Martinez ain't back till April. Luke Shaw's not back till May. We've literally gone back to that position where we've only got Casemiro to drop out, and we're back where we were. It's absolutely ridiculous. And, you know, the second point is it's going to make our job really hard. Really, really hard. Lindelof was a bloody nightmare at left-back against Villa. He got away with it against Luton. He is not a left-back. Some wouldn't even have him starting as a right centre-back. He's certainly not a left-back. Who else? You could put Dalot at left-back, but he's doing quite well at right-back. So is that worth doing? You've got youngsters like Harry Amas, who could come in and play there. But that's, you know, you could put Amrabat there, but it's a plaster on an open wound. And whoever plays there is not overlapping, whipping in nice crosses, is it? Are they? So, yeah, it's really, really difficult for us now. And what pisses me off more than anything is that we've had this all season. Quite rightly, Liverpool are saying at the moment our title race might get dishevelled or derailed by the injuries. And I agree with them. But all season we've had this. And I don't know really what to say about it. I don't. It's been all season. And, you know, I know there's a Ten Hag out movement and all that. And I get that, you know, it's down to them, whatever. But I've never known a season where basically we've not had Martinez all year. Luke Shaw's basically going to miss half of the season. Casemiro's missed 3 months of it already, and God knows what's going to happen now. You know, we've had the Rashford incident, we've had the Anthony incident, we've had the Sancho incident. it's just, you know, if it wasn't for Højlund, Garnacho and Mainu sort of exceeding expectation, you know, it's incredible. And look, Manik says, why don't we recall Alvaro Fernandez from Benfica? I guarantee we won't do it because we've got money coming in from that deal. So we won't do it. Like, it's ridiculous. Step said, you said Reguilon was shit. No, I didn't. Stop trying to make a name for yourself. I didn't say that. I said I don't rate Reguilon. I think he's good going forward, but defensively he's not great. But I don't rate Reguilon. But he's better than nothing, and he was the only fit left back we had. So I don't really know what your point is. I don't want to sign him and give him the Ballon d'Or. I'm just saying I wish we'd kept him, and I think we should have kept him. Would I have got him in the first place? No, I think there was better options. How do you feel about playing Harry, says Harold? Look, it's a big step up. We've seen Mainu do it. It can happen, but it's a big, big ask, especially when our next game after Fulham is the Cup semi-final at Forest and then Man City at the Etihad. Those two games are season-defining. You're going to chuck in a left-back like that. Would you try Anthony at left-back? Left foot, work rate and pace? I don't think he can tackle, Thomas. I don't think Anthony looks like somebody that's, you know, good at tackling. We have to have a serious conversation about our medical department, Mark. This is unprecedented for too long, says Pritt. Sell Rashi and get Nico Williams. Keep the young talent, says Zach. And I think the third conversation to have is, what do you do about Luke Shaw? Look, you know me. I'll always protect the players that I like, but I'll always be realist. You know, Bruno's one of my favourite players. He's not playing very well. Rashford's been one of my favourite players. He's been very up and down the last few years. Martial was one of my favourite players. It's time to part ways. Luke Shaw's been one of my favourite players for years. I think it's staring me in the face. I think it's staring us all in the face. I don't think this is about to get any better. And the sad thing for me is that Luke Shaw is not 31. You know, Varane can play one game a week. Luke Shaw's 28. 28 years of age. He's not, you know, this to me just reminds me of, and I've seen it before, this is a player that's just getting injured more and more and more and more. And, you know, I look back from 2020, ankle injury, hamstring injury, leg injury, muscle injury, ankle injury, hamstring injury. You know, it's all the same stuff. And look, Luke Shaw is powerful. He's got big thighs. He's got big calves, and he runs a lot. That's a lot of stress on your body, and he's had bad injuries in the past. I don't think... Look, I hope the way to solve this is Luke Shaw gets over this injury and he's not injured for the next 3 years. And then happy days, yabba dabba do. But I personally think that it's staring us in the face that this is going to become a problem game to game to game. He does get... He picks up a lot of injuries. And, you know, people saying, well, it's time to get rid of him. How do you get rid of him then? How do you get rid of Luke Shaw? You know, are people going to not be aware of his injury problems? These are the worst type of players to get rid of. Good wages, good contract, good player, but everybody else knows he's injured as well. So, yeah, look, it's a problem for the summer. But as I said before, if you want to get rid of Luke Shaw, you want to get Wan-Bissaka out, Shaw out, two of the centre-backs out, your holding midfielder out, a box-to-box midfielder out in Eriksen, at least one of your wingers out, you've got to bring a striker in. That's 8 players. And people are talking about getting rid of Bruno and Rashford. I mean, we're not getting rid of 8 players in the summer. So, as Sir Jim said earlier, I don't think we're going to see this lavish summer that some people think is going to happen. It's going to be a slow, long build, and you can see why. But look, it's devastating about Luke Shaw. There's no two ways about it. It's a massive problem. And you know what? I'm tired of it. I'm really tired of it. When it happened with Martinez, I was gutted, and now I feel the same again. You know what it is? It's like being on a lilo in the middle of the pool, and you suddenly hear a pop, and you're like, you're just sinking into the water, getting wet. And I'm like, I can't believe this. Yeah, but I did warn us. I did warn you, didn't I? I did warn you, to be fair. I did warn you. I said, everybody keeps talking about when we get our players back, we'll be fine when we get our players back. And I said, we won't get our players back. What makes people think that because we've had loads of injuries at the first half of the race, we won't get injuries in the second half of the race? you're more likely to get injuries in the second half of the race because it's fatigue later on in the season. We were never going to get to a point where, oh, everyone's fit again, we're happy for 6 months. It was always going to go this way. I just hoped the injuries would be shared out a little bit instead of the same bloody players. Luke Shaw and Martinez missing most of the season is devastating because they're the only two left-footed defenders we've got that are good. And, you know, actually, Luke Shaw can play the Martinez role. He's the only one who can do the Martinez role. It's really, really bad for our defence having those two out for such a long period of time. But I'll have to wait and see. Marvin says, so why is injury being used as an excuse, says Marvin? Because it is. What are we supposed to do? I mean, I don't like excuses. I don't like injuries to be an excuse, but of course it's an excuse. If Jurgen Klopp had Van Dijk and McAllister and Robertson out for most of the season, and he didn't have a backup left back at all, then it would be tough for them. It would be tough. But on top of that, we've also had a load of other injuries as well. It's been relentless. I mean, Wan-Bissaka's bloody injured at the moment. If Wan-Bissaka wasn't fucking injured, you could play Delo at left back as well. I mean, that's pissing me off. What's wrong with Wan-Bissaka? Why is he fucking injured for 2 months again? He hasn't even played, and suddenly Wan-Bissaka's out for 2 months. If Wan-Bissaka was fit, you could put Luke Shaw, you could put Delo at left back. It's just it's oppressive. It's oppressive, and it's all the time. It's soul destroying. Any news on Mount and Ashworth, says Ants TV? I mean, I'm not really interested in that. I'm talking about something else at the moment, mate. And I don't have any news on it either. The issue with the players we needed to offload is the majority is homegrown or English. Which English or homegrown players can we afford to help reach the minimum, says Wan. I think we need to buy some homegrown players and we need to bring through some young players. That's the only way we can get rid of some of these players that probably need to go. Hi, Mark. With news on a further long-term injury, is Shaw's time at Old Trafford running out? Thank you for always being here for the community, says Sotters. Well, I've just spoken about that, yeah, and I think it needs to be looked at, because if we don't look at it, then you know, it will be a problem. I mean, I just saw a tweet there that since joining Man United, Luke Shaw has missed 200 games through injury. You know, Luke Shaw is injury prone, and Luke Shaw is injury prone because he received one of the worst tackles I've ever seen live. Watching it was a TV match, but it was a horrific tackle, yeah, it's devastating. John says it's not his fault. I don't think anybody's blaming him. What we're saying is that the injury records are abysmal. Absolutely abysmal. Could we recall Brandon Williams, says Stu? Well, there are options. I mean, I don't think Brandon Williams is actually good enough, but there are options out there, and I think he was injured himself. I am doing a watch-along tonight, Porto against Arsenal, so yeah, we'll be doing that, Valentine, as well. Anyway, look, moving it on to something a little bit more positive. Bit of mixed signals coming out from people. A lot of people are saying Sir Jim wants a new stadium, and I didn't hear that in the interview. I didn't hear that at all. What I heard was basically two options, one of which I think he prefers. Basically, this is what Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said today about the potential of a new stadium or staying where he is. He said it's a no-brainer to rebuild Old Trafford, which he has described as run down and neglected. Now, I think some people are taking that as rebuild Old Trafford, meaning that he wants to build a new stadium. But this is what he said. In an ideal world, I think it's a no-brainer. In an ideal world, you want a stadium in the north, which would be a world-class stadium where England could play and you could have the FA Cup final, and it's not all centred around the south of England. So in an ideal world, absolutely, that's where I would be. But you've got to be practical about life. You have to think practically, because money doesn't grow on trees. The two most talked about issues at Manchester United are the football, the performance on the pitch, and the second is the stadium. What we can see so far, and we haven't had much time, and what we've seen of the stadium so far, there's a really good case to refurbish Old Trafford, probably about $1 billion in cost or something like that. You finish up with a great stadium. It's probably an 80 or 90,000 seater, but it's not perfect because you're modifying a stadium that is slap up bang against a railway line and all that type of stuff. So it's not an ideal world, but you finish up with a very good answer. Then he goes on to say that Manchester United needs a stadium befitting of one of the biggest clubs in the world, and at the moment it's not there. Old Trafford was 20 years ago, but it's certainly not today. There is a wider conversation with the community as to whether you could use a more ambitious project on site as a catalyst to regenerate the area, which is quite an interesting area in a way because it was heart of the Industrial Revolution. today it's a bit run down and it's neglected. There's a strong case for using a stadium to regenerate that area, like with the Olympics, like what Seb Coe did in East London. City have done it and they've done quite a good job. The people in the north pay their taxes like the people in the south. But where's the National Stadium for football? It's in the south. Where's the National Stadium for rugby? It's in the south. Where's the National Stadium for tennis? It's in the south. All this talk of levelling up in the Northern Powerhouse, where is the stadium in the north? So basically, I think what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is saying is that, well, it's a tough one, isn't it? I think he wants money from down south, government money, to build a massive stadium. And that would be a new Old Trafford. That would be knocking it all down, flattening it, and building a new state-of-the-art Wembley of the North. But what he's also saying is there's a good case to say that we just spend £1 billion on Old Trafford. So I don't know which way it's going to go. But either way, he's, clearly wanting to get things moving very, very quickly. Personally, I think what he's saying is, if we've got to pay for it, then we've got to rebuild Old Trafford, and we can do that. It's got challenges, but we can. But ideally, in an ideal world, you get what happened with Wembley. You get what happened with the Commonwealth Stadium that became the Etihad. You get a Wembley built in the north that is funded by the government. Now, I don't think that's realistic. I think that's, pie in the sky, really. But we'll have to wait and see. So we're still Muzz is right. He wants free money to build a stadium, and who can blame him for that? And it would solve a lot of problems because you could build it whilst playing in Old Trafford. But I think it's a case of watch this space, because nobody really knows what's going to happen with that. But something will happen, and it will happen very, very quickly, I think, in regards to that. I also think that it's worth saying that we've got a big conversation to be had about Mason Greenwood in the summer. The problem is when a journalist asks him a question, when you get asked a question about Mason Greenwood, he's got to answer it. I've had a lot of people messaging me saying, do you think that means he's coming back to Manchester United in the summer? My honest opinion is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe gave a very political answer about Mason Greenwood. He didn't commit one way or another, which is exactly what we've been saying for a while on this channel, is that the decision will be made in the summer. All I will say is that in that interview, what happens with Mason Greenwood, do you actually ever think, whether he thinks it or not, Sir Jim Ratcliffe was going to sit there and say, absolutely not, he will not be a Manchester United player. He will be removed from this club permanently in the summer. We're not bringing him back. He's never going to say that. He's never going to say that. On many levels, he can't say that. It's not fair to say it. It's also massively reduces his value. The answer to the question on Mason Greenwood has to be, we'll assess it in the summer. That has to be what it is. And that's basically what he said. We'll look at it again in the summer. He can't say anything else. That doesn't mean we're going to sell him either. But what I'm saying is, he's not going to sit there and say we're getting rid of him in the summer. And anybody who thinks that he is a goddamn fool, to be honest with you. Apparently, Luke Shaw will miss the rest of the season for Manchester United, but is in a race against the clock to prove his fitness for the Euros. I mean, I couldn't give a shit about that. Luke Shaw with England is good as an Englishman. He's the best left back we've got, but absolutely don't give a shit about him getting back for that. It really doesn't make any sense to me at all. But it's a huge issue for Manchester United. It really is, and somehow we're going to have to learn to deal with it, aren't we? I can't speechless about it, to be honest. I just can't believe it. I can't believe it. Luke Shaw, the best signing post Sir Alex, says Louis. I really like Luke Shaw. Hi, Mark. Do you think Højlund would move to Real Madrid in the next few years? Says Spin. No. Hi, Mark. With the news on a longer-term injury, is Shaw's time at Old Trafford running out? We've done that one as well. Yeah, I think... Yeah, and there was a bit of spin in the media about the Greenwood story, by the way. You know, I saw stuff like Sir Jim open to bringing Mason Greenwood back. He didn't say that at all. He didn't say that at all. And he also didn't say Mason Greenwood not coming back. It was a political answer to a question that must be left open till the summer. Simple as that. And there'll be a shitstorm if he brings him back, and there'll be a shitstorm if he sells him. And that's the truth, because it's a divisive topic, and we should all be mature enough to deal with that. The stadium, I think, will rumble on. The Luke Shaw story is a fact, and it's a very, very sad fact that he is going to be out. And it makes me feel sick. It makes me feel sick, because what we do is we end up in a situation whereby we've won our last 4 games and we think we're all right. But I'm telling you now, and most of you who know the game will know, because you've cleared the game, that Luke Shaw and Martinez out for the next 3 months massively causes us problems. And when these bad results start coming, remember what I said. They're going to come. The bad results will come. And they're probably going to become more frequent now because of this. And, you know, any prat in that football club or outside the football club who thinks this is on the manager is a bloody idiot. You can't compete in a boxing fight with 2 hands tied behind your back. And Martinez and Luke Shaw being out, it's massive. It's not only half of our defence injured, but it's probably the most consistent half of our defence injured. Right back has been up and down for the last 18 months. Right-sided centre-back has been up and down because of Varane and Maguire being injured. Martinez and Shaw are the most consistent bit of our defence, and they're absolutely out. And the fact that we're saying, where is Malacia, is laughable. Because Malacia, is he good? I don't even remember if Malacia is good. Even if Malacia's fit, is he any good? Yeah. Anyway, I've got to get over to the watch-along. Don't forget Manscaped, 20% off, free worldwide shipping. Trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. TUS is the code. I'm going to quickly get over to That's Football because Luton at Liverpool kicks off at 7:30, and then it's Porto against Arsenal at 8. So a night of football with me on That's Football if you want to tune in. I'll see you over there in a bit. Legends back on here tomorrow morning, and interesting stuff about the manager coming out for tomorrow morning. Just got to get onto it a little bit. See you in a bit.